Thank you. How you doing? Good to see you. How are you? Thank you. Thank you. You look great. I feel at home. I am at home. In the house of labor. And I'm not afraid to come to this podium and say I am a union supporter and a union man. That's right. I know a lot of people these days in the political realm that are afraid to say that for one reason or another. But my commitment to you, my support for labor and the labor movement and all the legislation that Sherrod just talked about, is based on the fact that the unions in the United States created the greatest middle class this world has ever seen. And I was a beneficiary of the labor movement. My grandfather was a steel worker. My mom was AFSCME. All of my cousins worked at the General Motors factory in Lordstown, were IUE CWA, worked at the Delphi factory and outside of Lordstown, supplying General Motors. They were in the building and construction trades. My wife's a teacher. We are supporting you because we know the impact that you have on people's lives. And it's time in this country for us to remember not where unions are now, but where we need the unions to be. That's why we're talking about the Worker Act and all of these issues, so that we can help expand the middle class in the United States, that we can stop the race to the bottom with trade agreements and the tax code. And you know, I lived about 2 blocks from my grandparents. And I don't know, you know, some of you are from Ohio, but we're all kind of come from the same kind of place. And towards the end of my grandfather's life, he needed some help going grocery shopping. And I don't know how your parents or grandparents shopped, but my grandfather, who was Italian, turned it into an art form. Just going grocery shopping. And so this was about, I don't know, 6 months before he passed away. And I was driving him around, and you know, we had to go to this grocery store to get the salami and the pepperoni because it was on sale. And then we had to drive all the way across town, and we had to go to another store and get the provolone cheese because the cheese was on sale over there. And then we had to, I'll never forget this, we had to go to a gas station and get a 30-pack of Miller High Life because it was on sale for $9.99. And then, now, we're hours into this thing at this point, and I was younger and a little less patient than I am today. And I remember my grandfather saying, you know, we got to go get one more thing, and we got to go over to whatever store it was. And I said, Grandpa, like, there's a store right here. Let's just, you know, we've been gone 2 hours. And he said, no, we can't go. I said, well, why not? He said, the meat cutters are on strike, and we ain't crossing that picket line. And I love telling that story because it gets to the heart of the matter. It's about respect. My grandfather didn't know what the terms of that contract was or were, what the terms were. He didn't know if they were bargaining over health care or wages or working conditions. He had no clue. But we were raised that if we're in doubt, we're going to come down on the side of the workers, right? We're going to come down on the side of the union. And that's what we're talking about in this election, how critically important it is. And I can't think of a more consequential union in the upcoming election than the UAW. Can't think of it. And I'm not just trying to blow smoke up your ass, you know? Sorry. Hey, I'm from Youngstown. If I don't get up here and at least swear once, my people will be really upset with me, okay? But y'all act like you never heard that before. I almost just said the F word just to get shock value, but I'm not going to do that. My grandfather raised me better than that. But I mean it, because when you look at the states, you look at Ohio, you look at Michigan, you look at Wisconsin, you look at the industrial Midwest, we have got to get some of those voters back that went and voted for Trump. And I know there are some that I've talked to that went and voted for Trump and now have doubts. A lot of the workers at the General Motors factory in Lordstown, and my buddy Rich Rankin's here somewhere, who's the pride of, hey Rich, who's the pride of the Lordstown facility and the pride of the Mahoning Valley. But we have got to dig down, not all of you, but the rank and file members in these unions. We have got to paint the picture that this president, blue collar boom, are you freaking kidding me? Blue collar boom, wages have not raised as much during Trump as they did during Obama. And we have a system where they did a tax cut, $2.3 trillion of a tax cut when it's all said and done, money that's borrowed from China and other countries, and 83% of that tax cut goes to the top 1% of the people in the country. And we have a system now where if a company cuts jobs, cuts people's livelihood, downsizes, their stock goes up 5 or 6%. That's the kind of broken economic system we have in the United States today. And this president has made it worse, not better. And when you look at him trying to impede unions, you look at the $1 trillion deficits. He's saying he's for expanding prescription drug coverage and lowering costs. He's for making sure that people can't get denied health care with a pre-existing condition. And at the same time, they have a court case where they're trying to abolish pre-existing conditions. Like, don't tinkle on my back and tell me it's raining outside, right? You can't lie to the American people like he has lied to the American people. And the only thing that can cut through what he is doing and all the noise that comes out of the TV shows and social media is you. Is you knocking on someone's door. You talking to someone at the factory. You making sure that the retirees group is active and engaged and involved. That's the only way we're going to be able to do this. And we are getting to the point where we're not going to recognize the country when you start stacking the court with anti-union judges all across the board. Another 4 years of anti-union appointments in the Department of Labor, if they even have appointments in the Department of Labor. Think about it. What they're trying to do to the public sector unions. Think about it. It's our job. This is our moment in time. And we can't back down. We have got to win this election. We have got to win the United States Senate back so we can send Mitch McConnell back home to Kentucky. I think we should get them like a lifetime supply of bourbon and send them back to Kentucky. Like, I'd be willing to do that. That's a good trade. To China. You guys are rowdy for the morning. I expect this after cocktail hour, but I don't expect this after coffee. Let me say a couple things and I'll tell you a quick story. One of the things we have to do, and this takes thoughtfulness, it takes a team effort. I mean, one of the things I really did not like about last night, and you know, there was a list of lies, I mean, you can just go through it, but set that aside. The division, right? The fear. I played a lot of sports growing up, a lot of football, a lot of basketball, a lot of team sports. And we had some success in high school and football playoffs and all that, and I was an old quarterback. I never remember being on a successful team where the players didn't absolutely love each other. We didn't always like each other, but we cared about each other. We worked together. We set our egos aside, and our coaches would always say, check your ego at the locker room door. How do we come together? How do we possibly think this country of 330 plus million people, that we're going to be able to compete in a global economy against China with 1.3 or 4 billion people, where the government's pumping money in infrastructure, pumping money into new technologies, pumping money into electric vehicles and charging stations, and all of this? How do we possibly think about it, how do we possibly think we're going to be able to win this brutal economic competition divided? It's not going to work. It can't. And so for the president to come to the State of the Union and in one moment have a beautiful moment with the Tuskegee Airmen and the grandkid, and then half a paragraph later spewing racism. How are we possibly going to think we're going to beat China in this competition, beat India in this competition, beat Germany and the European Union members in this competition, if we think that the workers are an item on the budget sheet and not actually partners with the future of these companies and should be cut in on the deal? It's not going to work. And so our job as we go out and campaign, and I think this can be probably the most powerful argument we make, because it just speaks to who we are as a species. We've got to be together to survive. That's why we're all still here. And you saw what happened in our economy when we were together, when unions were strong, when we asked the wealthiest to pay more so we can invest in the healthcare, invest in the education, invest in the NASA, invest into our national defense, invest into the interstate highway, invest into our ports, lift up the workers. My grandfather, and it was a different time, but he would always say, you vote for the police levy and fire levy, you vote for the school levy. Because if you want a good community, that's what you need. But that was a time when unions were strong and everyone had a few bucks to reinvest back into the community. And we have got to get back to that. And so that's the mission for us. Dignity, respect, these essential qualities, these essential values that we have, that's what's on the ballot. Are we going to be together? Or are we going to allow this president to continue to divide us? And that's what he does, right? You're white, you're black, you're union, you're non-union, you're business, you're labor, you're public sector union. We had this in Ohio in 2010 when they tried to get rid of the unions. They tried to divide who's in a public sector union versus who's in a private sector union. How many ways can we divide ourselves? Right? And then they divide, and they get a tax cut worth $2.3 trillion. It's up to us. It's up to us. I'm going to tell you one last story. It's a great story about Muhammad Ali. And the champ lived in Kentucky, coincidentally enough. And a buddy of mine was telling me this story. It's in his family lore that this guy was walking down the street and he saw Muhammad Ali in Louisville, Kentucky. And he said, hey, champ. Champ said, you know, he had that high-pitched voice. Hey, how you doing? He said, good. He says, I saw you fight when I was a kid. And he says, oh, yeah, great. He said, yeah, it was a great fight, but you got knocked down in the third round. And Champ said, wasn't my fight. And the kid said, no, I'll never forget it. It's like It was a father-son thing, and my dad took me, and it was a great fight, never forget it, but you got knocked down in the third round. And the champ said, it wasn't my fight. I ain't never been knocked down. I'm either up or I'm getting up. Well, the unions have never been knocked down. The unions in America are either up or they're getting up. The Democratic Party in the United States has never been knocked down. It's either up or it's getting up. America has never been knocked down. We are either up or we're getting up. God bless you. Let's go win this election. Thank you.